What's up, everyone? Live across the platforms. About to be live across the other platforms. As soon as the buttons are clickable. Live, yep, live on Instagram also. Waiting for the little red button on Rockfin, then we will get started. Hope everyone's having a great Thursday evening. Here we go. We're live on Rockfin now as well. The truth about Kamala's bus tour. This got tongue-tied there for a second. This is the Propaganda Report. I'm Brad Binkley. Later this evening, my mind was split, decided which direction to go in. I'm going to tell you about what we're doing after I do this. 8:50 p.m., Ian and I are going to be doing a live stream of Kamala's big interview, her first interview, her and VP Tim's big interview, Coach Tim. And we're going to do some commentary on it, so tune back in at 8:50 for that. I will have the link set up for that after the completion of this show, which will not be a very long show. Okay, back in the rhythm after that opening flub there. I've been seeing all of this coverage of Kamala's historic bus tour the past couple of days, and it's driven me crazy. It's driven me completely crazy because almost none of what they're saying about this bus tour is true. Almost none of it. And so I want to do a quick show to talk about what is true about this groundbreaking bus tour that we keep hearing so much about that just ended in Savannah at 5 p.m. today. It was a bus tour that started yesterday morning and ended today at 5 p.m. That went to two places. It's not really a tour. It's just a day on a bus with a bunch of hand-picked journalists and Democrat politicians that you paraded around to fill the space with, so it looked like where you were, there were a bunch of people that came to see you, which is completely untrue. People did not come to see her. I'll tell you why and how you know this in a minute. So, despite what the media is claiming about Kamala's big tour, Kamala did not, in fact, go out of her comfort zone, leaving the safe confines of left-leaning Atlanta and dive into a deep red district in areas where Trump thrives in an effort to win votes that perhaps Trump is losing, to win disaffected Republicans and independents in those areas. And no, she also did not draw enthusiastic crowds in the two places that she actually did stop on this bus tour. None of that. She did not bravely go off script and go into the heart of enemy territory and face challenging questions because now all of a sudden Georgia's in play. None of this is true. They want you to believe it's true for this narrative they're propagating, but none of it is true. All Kamala and Coach VP did was go to two Democrat strongholds that aren't in Atlanta, Liberty County, Georgia, and Savannah, Georgia, where in the first one, she went to a high school during school hours and spoke to a captive audience of students who had no choice but be there because it was school hours. God forbid they didn't show up on the day Kamala was there, and she'd probably have their parents arrested for truancy. In the second place that she went to, after briefly going to the school, they went over to a barbecue place in Savannah to do a photo op with some of her donors. That's it. She went to a high school, spoke to captive students, then did a photo op at a BBQ place with people who paid to do the photo op and were vetted. That's the grand tour that's supposed to represent even more of this groundswell of enthusiasm. That's everything they do. They try and factor it into that narrative, which is not true. Not in Georgia anyway. I've been on the ground doing man on the street in Atlanta multiple times. Talked to lots and lots of people. They do not like Kamala. There is no enthusiasm for Kamala. Jill Stein has gotten more love from the people I've talked to than Kamala. It's crazy. They passionately dislike her, some people. Not once have I met someone, and I've talked to a lot of people, who has enthusiasm for Kamala. But they keep pumping that narrative out there. The AJC even admitted yesterday exactly what I've been telling people for weeks about how you can tell this enthusiasm, this groundswell of enthusiasm narrative around Kamala isn't real. See right here. Let me get up on screen. Is that right thing on screen? Hello, Sam. Hello, Denver. All right, so on screen here, this is Greg Bluestein, is that how you say his name, of the AJC. And this is from an article that he wrote. They always have these stupid pictures of them smiling and, you know, Tim pointing at some person he's going to make feel uncomfortable later. And his tweet, which this same thing is in the article, says, he's on the tour, by the way. He's one of the selected journalists that got to go with her, so he should know the truth, but he's a writer for the AJC, which is Google News Initiative funded, and they report exactly like CNN, just at the local level. They're awful. He writes, the bus stop itinerary, a closely guarded secret, didn't include visits to deep red areas. The second part I'll read to you later. A closely guarded secret, her itinerary. Then you come over here and you look in. Let's see if this is the right one. As they show it again. See what they say. All right, so closely guarded secret. Another article which was written by a different AJC writer. Location. All of these the articles, they lie, but then they also reveal the truth in their lies. Like they undermine their own stories, but in the weirdest way. So check this one out. I just want to show that it's not me making this up, because I've been saying this for a while, because I've tried to go to Kamala's events on multiple occasions, and you cannot find any details about it beforehand because they keep it a secret. Is this the right one? Okay. Oh my gosh. Did I just get frozen out? Can you guys hear me still? Every freaking time. All right, so I'm not frozen out. Good. Sorry, my screen went black. What's up, Grubby? You heard the interview tonight's been edited down to 18 minutes? Probably. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of editing in that. What's up, JC? All right, thank you, Zach. All right, so here's the screen share. Right. All right, so you see right there in the AJC, this article says the visit, the location of which was kept under wraps by the campaign, thrilled many. It thrilled many, and then it shows a picture of a bunch of cheerleaders who had to be there. Are they the ones who are thrilled? Or is the Democrat politician who was selected to be on the bus with them and the handpicked journalists who are friendly and write the narrative that they're told to propagate? Who's actually thrilled about them being there? Because the only people who are there are the high schoolers who are held hostage in the public schools and everybody who's on the bus with them. And this article actually is titled, Harris Draws an Appreciative Crowd. She didn't draw a crowd. You can't pack a bus, like 10 buses or however many, full of people that you handpick and go fill them into the room you go to with a bunch of high schoolers who have to be there and then say, look at the crowd she drew. She didn't draw a crowd. That's not a groundswell. It's BS is what it is. And they admit that. They keep these locations secret. You cannot have enthusiasm grow around a candidacy when you don't tell anybody when and where to find you. And what I tweeted when I shared this thing that Greg from the AJC shared, where he admitted that it's always a closely guarded secret. How can her crowds represent such a groundswell of enthusiasm like they tell us they do when her event locations and times are a closely guarded secret, as he admitted? Everyone in the room every time is handpicked and controlled. It would be like if I did a live stage show and I didn't tell anyone about it. I kept it completely a secret when and where it was going to happen. And then after the fact, I said where it was. And I said, there's been such a groundswell of support for my live stage shows. And the room was packed. Everybody was excited. You'd be like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. Because no advertiser has ever been like, the best way to spread your message and draw in new people is to keep everything you do a secret about when and where you do it. That's not a marketing strategy. Yet they would have us believe that somehow Kamala's drawing in all these new people. Nobody likes her. Nobody likes her unless they're told to like her, unless there's something in it for them, or they're forced to be. Can you imagine not liking Kamala and being at that school? You better keep your damn mouth shut if you have anything negative to say about Kamala, which I'll show you something else about that bus tour in, what was it, Liberty County, where she didn't draw anybody. Exactly, Denver. So look at this. This is so stupid. But these writers, they just, I'm guessing they know they contradict. I think this Greg Bluestein guy, he's probably a nice guy. He gets featured on MSNBC all the time. I think he's probably starstruck. And I don't know. I don't really know him. I'm just speculating. I may be wrong. Maybe he knows he's lying. But he writes in his article just the most contradictory things that anybody with a brain will look at and go, what? How do you not realize that this doesn't make any sense? That you're propagating a narrative. And I think that he knows what he has to write to stay in the loop on all this stuff. He gets the address. He gets to be on the bus. He gets to know when all of her stuff is because he never tells anybody. He's a journalist, but he never tells anybody when her stuff is. I reply to him all the time because he will say, Kamala's coming into town next week on this day, or maybe on this day, but he knows when it is, but he's a journalist that won't tell you when it is, because if he tells people when it is, what a journalist should do, he will lose his access to the event. So he cares more about his access, which requires him to keep the information that journalists should reveal a secret, and also requires him to propagate the message that her campaign can count on him to propagate. He has to be reliable in delivering the talking points they feed to him. It's all really stupid. It's dangerous, though, all of this stuff, because Kamala going to 2 Democrat stronghold towns, drawing nobody because nobody knew about it, forcing people to listen just so they can get sound bites and do PR pictures with donors, is dumb because most people believe, not most people, some people believe it. Enough people believe it. And that's the purpose, is to create this illusion of Kamala joy rising across the country using the media and fabrications. I mean, this is a total fabrication. And so I'm guessing, I haven't been to other states, but they're focusing heavily on Georgia and trying to make it look like Trump had Georgia won when Biden was a candidate. Then Kamala stepped in, and Kamala rising, Kamala joy, joy, joy. She's so happy. Her laugh is so wonderful. Everybody loves her. Trump is fumbling Georgia because he said something mean about beloved Governor Brian Kemp. It's just nonsense. I went to Georgia Tech the other day, expecting the students I talked to be enthusiastic for Kamala. They weren't. None of them were. There was a couple that were like, I guess I'll go Kamala because I don't like any of them. One of the 2 people, I talked to a lot of people, one of the 2 people who said they're going with Kamala also said that he thinks Kamala is retarded, but that she's the best at shutting the F up. That was his reasoning. Didn't seem like enthusiasm to me, but they want to create this idea of enthusiasm so that they can steal the election if they need to, and have half the country believe that they never would do such a thing, and that anybody who suggests that they might have and says, let's look into it, well, that's the sign of an insurrectionist, and let's just break the country in half. That's why it's dangerous, what they're doing. And I don't know how many people believe it. I do know some people who do believe this stuff. Hopefully not many, but I'm guessing enough do, because I don't know that they would continue doing it if they didn't. So here's where Greg Bluestein, or how do you say his name? Bluestein. He just, look at this article. Make sure this is right. He wrote so many articles the past 2 days, and they're all nonsense. In one article, he was writing about how, I think it was titled, Why Kamala's Bus Tour Through Georgia wasn't through Georgia, it was to 2 places. And it wasn't a tour. It was a stop at a friendly location to get sound bites and photos. That's all it was. But why it's so important. And he said that basically she's venturing out of the safe confines of left-leaning Atlanta and going into deep red territory to try and reach those voters there. And then he also said, and similar sentiment in this article here, which is titled, BBQ and Fight Songs. Harrison Walsh Start 2-Day Swing in Georgia. What a gay title. I mean, I would feel so gay if I had that, if I wrote that title. I don't think I would show it to anybody because I think they would think I were, I'd be like, nah, I know I wrote this title, but I know you want it. It just makes me feel gay writing a title like this. Fight song. And they want to do the theme. They want to do everything football coachy theme, everything football, Coach Walsh, Coach Walsh. That's going to get so annoying so quickly. It already has. The Coach Walsh sign. Is it Walsh? Do you say the Z? They say that he made good with Kemp, Grubby. But I think it's probably a frenemy thing. Kemp is CNN's favorite Republican, and Kemp also is not on board with what the Georgia Elections Board is doing. And that's going to see if Trump and Kemp have another fight, is what happens in a couple weeks with that. And Greg Bluestein actually said that they didn't really make up. I think because he loves Kemp and hates Trump, just like CNN's Caitlin Collins does. How many election cycles can they get by doing the shadow campaign? I'm wondering the same thing too. It's almost like the shadow campaigns aren't in the shadows anymore, where the mindset could be, why are we hiding in the shadows when we can just lie to their faces and say the most ridiculous things and enough people will believe it? I almost feel like they're testing that because it's gotten brazen. I mean, it's better to be corrupt out in the open when nobody stops you instead of having to hide it, I would think. All right, this is the most, so back-to-back paragraphs, this guy, he says one thing and then immediately contradicts himself. Let me make sure I find it. Interview, highly anticipated. Okay, here it is. So from that article about the barbecue and the fight songs, Bluestein writes, this is so ridiculous. Harrison Walsh toured parts of the state that rarely see Democratic presidential contenders as part of a strategy to boost liberal turnout, to appeal to independent voters, and to send a signal that her campaign intends to compete in rural areas where former President Donald Trump thrives. I'm going to read that again because I stumbled over it a little bit. Harrison Walsh toured parts of the state that rarely see Democrat presidential contenders. Never mind that Barack Obama has been to both of the places that she went. And they did it as part of a strategy to boost liberal turnout, appeal to independent voters, and send a signal the campaign intends to compete in rural areas where former President Donald Trump thrives. Okay. Interesting. Kind of seems like she's going to be going to, MAGA territory and trying to reach those independent voters and disaffected Trump or disaffected Republicans that hate Trump, right? That's how I interpreted that when I first read it. Maybe I assumed too much, because in the very next paragraph, it says, but the campaign's itinerary, a closely guarded secret, didn't include any visits to deep red areas. Did not include any visits to deep red areas where Harris hopes to cut GOP margins. Instead, it consisted of 2 stops in friendly territory separated by a roughly 1-hour ride in a lengthy motorcade. Wait, what? She didn't go to deep red areas? Didn't he just say in the previous paragraph that her strategy for this bus tour was to show that she intends to compete in areas where Trump thrives? Maybe I'm just stupid about politics, but I assumed that showing she can compete in towns where Trump does great in might involve, I don't know, going to towns where Trump does well in. I had no idea that the best way to show that she can compete in deep red towns where Trump thrives was by strategically avoiding deep red towns where Trump thrives. Because that's what they did. South Georgia has a lot of red towns. And so they wrote all these articles venturing into deep red territory. They talked about it on CNN. We're so excited she's going out there because there's all these winnable votes because everybody's so excited about her and they're enthusiastic, and Trump's fumbling Georgia and she's going to get those Republicans that don't like. So they didn't specifically say she's going to this specific deep red town, just deep red area of Georgia. And then she chooses, or her campaign does, not her. She didn't choose anything. Outliers, which is what Liberty County is, according to these articles. It's an outlier among deep red territory, meaning they strategically avoided the very thing everyone was praising them, making it look like they were doing to win Georgia, which is in play now, they say. What a crock. What a total crock. Why would he write that first paragraph? The 2 paragraphs are so contradictory. Why would you say that her strategy is to show that she's going to do well? You can see it in the language. You can see it in the language that he knows what he's doing. Or maybe he compartmentalizes it, but he wrote, she intends to compete. Let me see it again. Make sure I get the language right. Part of the strategy to boost the liberal turnout, blah, 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 and send a signal to the campaign that the campaign intends to compete in rural areas where former President Trump thrives. Sends a signal. So he knew that they weren't actually going to deep red towns, but he still wrote a paragraph that, reading it, makes you assume that she's going to go to deep red towns. That's what they do. They write things that create assumptions, reasonable assumptions, that they can then go back and say, no, I just said that she's sending a signal. What? By going to another a town that has nothing to do, that is almost as blue as Atlanta. It's a Democrat stronghold, mostly African American, that Biden won with 61% in 2020 that she went to. That was as friendly as it can get. She didn't go out of her comfort zone. She went right into her comfort zone, avoiding anything that challenged her. They even made it seem like she was going to be going into the enemy territory and potentially facing tough questions from people she needed to win over to break this whole idea that she's scripted and controlled. She did none of that. She did absolutely zero of any of that. Yet all of the reporting suggests all of this. It's all the opposite of what they said. Complete opposite. Unbelievable. I mean, it's not unbelievable. I shouldn't say that. There's more in this article, too. maybe he has allowed his articles to be written, but yeah, I think that he has. I think that they give them everybody on the campaign. But I'll show you where he talks about the motorcade here. I think it's in the same article. Okay, here it is. The Harris campaign assembled a massive fleet of vehicles with dozens of staffers, journalists, and political leaders stuffed into about 35 vans, buses, and SUVs for the rolling tour of Southeast Georgia. 35 buses and SUVs. Let's think about that for a second. She goes to 2 locations. She goes to a high school, and she goes to a barbecue joint. Nobody's going to be there because, well, the students will. They have to be. But nobody's going to be at the barbecue. The barbecue joint's not going to be open for business on that day. And they've told nobody about her event. Nobody knows when and where she's going to be. So how do you make it look like a bunch of people showed up to support her, like she drew in a crowd? Well, you stuff 35 vans and buses full of Democrat politicians and leaders, staffers, and friendly journalists who are going to write what you tell them to write. A bunch of controlled people. And then you fill the room with everyone who you are in complete control of, and you say that she drew people and there's enthusiasm. It's all an illusion. And it's revealed in this article that forces him to write that her strategy is to signal. So he had to write that. That's the part he had to write. He had to write that she's going to show that she's going to compete in those rural areas because she's feeling confident now, because that's part of the narrative and that's part of his requirement to write that BS. And all the people you see in those videos and images that aren't the students or aren't the workers at the barbecue place, and the people at the barbecue place, those are Democrat donors. They're not just patrons who are like, I came to have a barbecue sandwich today, and holy cow, there's Kamala Harris. Whoa, what are the odds? No. Everybody there donated to her campaign. I know, because I got the text message, because I sign up for all this stuff, trying to find out when this stuff happens, that asked me, and it gave me an image. I even tweeted the image maybe a week and a half ago, or gave me the opportunity, would you like to have your photo taken with Kamala? And actually, let me show you that part real quick. So, it might be in the other article. Hold on, I'll show you the other article, I believe. I didn't put that out. Well, he wrote so many articles. I'm trying to search through to find all the right spots. All right, so here's what they wrote. I don't have it up on screen, but they wrote that they went to the barbecue place in Savannah, and Coach Tim had a bunch of photos taken with teachers who requested to have teacher photos with Tim. That was the way they put it in the article, teacher photos. And it said that they had photos taken with the patrons. Those were donors who got the same text message I did, or email. I thought about maybe donating a few bucks to it, but then I thought about it and realized that if I did that, I'd be wasting money. It'd be stupid. And then I would just look like a Democrat donor. And I wouldn't get chosen, because you donate enough money and you get selected, is what the text message said. It's the opportunity. If you got to click here and donate money, and then you get like in a raffle, basically. But it's not a raffle. It's who donates the most money is going to signal the most commitment. And then they're going to vet the people to make sure they're Democrat registered, probably, and that they are not some sort of operative or somebody like me who might mess with them. And then only those people will get the address. And in fact, maybe not even them. People who they know there's no problem, who've been active in the Democrat Party, who want their photo taken, while everybody else who donates just get the illusion that maybe they'll be selected, which probably isn't very many people. But that's what was written in the article. And man, did I close that article? I just like to show all the articles. Just so I know you guys know I'm not making it up, but it's good to, maybe it said picture. Maybe that's the right word. No. Hold on one second. Picture, teacher. Okay, here it is. Yeah, I found it. Teacher donations. This is how you know that this was just a photo op, in my opinion. It says, an hour or so later after the meeting up with the band, the Democrats swung by Sandfly BBQ, a local hotspot known for its Savannah-style barbecue. They posed for pictures with patrons, which is, the writing here is a little bit, the editor, I don't think did a good job, including a group of educators who asked for a, quote, teacher picture with Waltz. What does that mean? They're going to, like, sit on his lap? Or what's a teacher picture? Like Waltz is standing over them teaching them? Is this some sort of fetish? Can I get one with Waltz choking me on the desk in detention? Let me get a sexy detention picture with VP Tim. These people are disgusting. There's nobody in that barbecue place that was not a donor and wasn't there for a photo op. And furthermore, listen to how he describes the first location again, the high school. The entrance when Harris and Walsh showed up. This is all part of, like you mentioned, Denver. Sup, Irie? Hello. Yeah, actual journalists and corporate media are as rare as pink unicorns. I agree with that. So, okay, so it was like a crowd. They got roarious cheers, I think. Is it a roar? Yeah, there it is. Okay, here's what he wrote, the AJC guy. At Liberty County High School, Harris and Walsh were greeted by a roar of applause from a room full of football players, cheerleaders, members of the marching band, and several faculty members as they entered a cramped classroom. A cramped classroom? So they handpicked some football players, some cheerleaders, some members of the marching band, and a handful of faculty members to fill up a small room, make a room look full for the photos, and have students who had no choice. They had no choice but be there. I'm sure the ones who follow orders from their teachers and don't want to get detention are probably the ones who were chosen, who don't talk back. And they cram them into this room, and it all fits the narrative that they've been spreading. They wanted images of Tim Waltz talking to football players. And that's what they got. They got Tim Waltz, Coach Tim, we're down three points, and it's the fourth quarter, but we're underdogs, and wow. Like just, he sounds like he's never played football in his life. Am I wrong about that? He sounds like he knows nothing about football to me, the way he talks about it. He needs to show that he can throw a spiral and catch a football, in my opinion, if he's going to continue to be referred to as Coach Waltz. But that's why they chose football players. It's all the optics. And Kamala, well, wouldn't you know it, she was in the band when she was in high school, which she tells this crowd. So they bring the band members in so Kamala can speak about her experience being in the band. I'm just like you. I was in the band. This school didn't come up with an idea on their own. Oh my gosh, let's get the football players, the cheerleaders, and the band, and we'll have the band play them a song. And then Kamala spontaneously reacted to it. That's not how it happened. Her campaign contacted them, said, this is what we need. We need the football players, cheerleaders, who the Cheerleaders Act actually got cut because the band went on longer. And it was nerve-wracking when the cheerleaders said. But they put the band in there, told them to play the song so that Kamala could look like she was reacting spontaneously, but was actually just giving the pre-scripted remarks that somebody wrote for her before they got there. And after they were there briefly, because they had to cut the cheerleading segment, they got the heck out of there and they went and they did the photo op at the barbecue joint. Every single part of this was strictly controlled, and everybody they encountered was handpicked and vetted. Students, when they're in school, do not have freedom of speech. If they talk out of turn or talk back to their teacher, they can get detention, even in-school suspension. What do you think would have happened if some of those students did not applaud Kamala, or even worse for them, booed her? Do you think they had the freedom to boo Kamala and protest her appearance at their school? Of course not. Of course they did not. If they said anything not great about Kamala, if they booed her, they would have been escorted out of the room, given in-school suspension, and their family probably would have been killed. That is what this tour was. It was nothing the media has said it was. It's all poppycock is what it is. And these people just parrot these narratives. And these same stuff that this guy's writing is what CNN, MSNBC, the AP, they all wrote the same stuff. All they wanted were sound bites and video and images that go with the narrative they've been telling that they could try and make go viral on social media, which is why they had the young people who were forced to be there. There's no freedom from those students. They didn't choose to. They didn't go, oh my gosh, I skipped school for the past 2 months, but Kamala's going to be there today. I better show up because I love her. There's no crowd that's drawn. And they're hoping all these kids are going to share these videos and images on social media. You know what? Now that I think about it, it wouldn't surprise me if they chose the students at that school that had the biggest TikTok and Instagram followings. I bet that's what they did. I don't know if there's names of any of these students there, but I'm going to look them up if there are. I bet they chose the students that could get them the most exposure if they take pictures of them with Kamala and Tim. Yeah, I'm going to check that out. Let's see if I can find one while we're live here. With Woods, Liberty High School TikTok. No, nothing there. Meredith Woods, Liberty High, Georgia, Instagram. Okay, let's see if that's her. No, that's the wrong one. All right, I'll look for that later. I'll see if I can find some of that later. I bet that's the criteria. It had to be. It's all a show. It's all a show. And it's not real. I don't care who you vote for. Just don't be gay about it. Don't do, in my opinion, don't do white dudes for Kamala or cucks for Kamala or even white dudes for Trump. God forbid, don't do white dudes for Trump. You can do black dudes for Trump. I can't say the word, but that's cooler. But just vote for whoever you want to vote for. Don't vote at all. I don't vote. I'm just highlighting that the story we're being told is the opposite of reality based on my experiences personally. And of course, I haven't talked to everybody in Atlanta, but you can get a sense of things, you know? And the more people I talk to, the more surprised I am about how little enthusiasm there is for Kamala, in Georgia anyway. And the fact that they have to create such an elaborate fabrication, which is literally the opposite of what happened, tells me that I'm correct, especially when I keep talking to people I expect to be progressives and they love Trump. Or they either love Trump or they don't want to say anything. Usually because they might dislike Kamala and don't want to say it because I think when I was talking to some of the tech students, I think they might have thought that I was a Democrat. Because I was playing around with them. They didn't know. And some of them didn't want to say. They didn't want to be ridiculed. I wasn't going to ridicule them. I was just playing around with them. But one student, I need to play that clip. She talked about how she feels like she's in the closet. She's a closet Republican, but she feels like around some of her friends that she can't talk about where she stands politically. And that was interesting. I wish I would have followed up with her. I think it was moving so quickly, but I wish I would have followed up with her on whether or not her friends she feels that way about actually openly talk about how they like Kamala or whatever. Because I'm starting to think there's a grand spiral of silence, media-created spiral of silence among many who don't like Kamala at all. Maybe they like Trump, maybe they don't, but they're quiet because they feel they're going to be ridiculed, because they feel everybody disagrees with them and everybody actually likes Kamala, when the reality is everybody agrees with them, but they're also afraid to talk. And the majority actually dislike her very much, which is what was true before all of this. You know, that was like, nobody liked her, but now it's like, everybody likes her. What? Kamala joy! Joy, 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 joy. Kamala, Kamala joy. All right, let me make sure I hit everything I wanted to cover here. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. We're going to be back in a little bit. Oh, Comedians for Kamala, Sarah, was the worst thing I'd ever seen. That guy from, was it Parks and Rec? What is that show? Man, that was cringe. The one who sang the song, the Lee Greenwood parody. I'm proud to be a Kamala the man. I mean, my God, dude. Have some dignity. His wife or girlfriend, is there any way she's ever going to be attracted to him again after that? Although that attitude and that gayness is what they want masculinity to be, or men to be. We saw it with that, was it Washington Post article that declared Doug Emhoff, who talks like this, Doug Emhoff, and I talk like I'm a 7th grade gay boy, and I love Kamala, and I'm the sexiest man. I'm a modern masculine. I mean, that's the craziest article I've ever seen. I should go through that article. If you haven't read that article where that girl talks about how sexy he is because he's a cuck, basically, and low T. I mean, and we had Dana Bash praise Emhoff and Walsh basically for being low T beta males. That's the new male. That's the man of the Democrat Party. And they're trying to appeal to people who feel that way. So maybe the Comedians for Kamala, they're recognizing that, and they're trying to be like, look, my favorite comedian loves to suck D. Maybe I'll give it a try, too, and see if my girlfriend likes it. Yeah, it's crazy. Is that it? All right, that's all I wanted to cover. I'm going to be back in about 40 minutes with Ian. And we're going to go through, or we're going to stream and comment on the big interview. You guys have any expectations for that? I wonder what Tim's role is going to be, because he has to make her look good. That's his job, is to make her look good. They'll obviously get softball questions, but I imagine that maybe Tim Walsh's job will be to come out of the gate fumbling and just looking like an idiot. So that the rest of the time, Kamala looks good. So instead of Tim having to jump in and save Kamala, which is what many people kind of believed, if I were doing it and I wanted to make Kamala look good, I would say, Coach Tim, your job is to fumble that football in the 1 yard line, is to step out of bounds 2 yards short of the first down, is to forget to wear your jockstrap and get kicked in the nuts, is to look so stupid that Kamala has to jump in and save him and correct him. That's what I would do. Let's see what happens. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. We will see you guys in about 40 minutes if you guys come back. Big girl interview. That's right. We'll talk to you next time. Anna P., there is a, snail mail. If you go to my Twitter account, which is at Freedom Act Radio, then here, I'll put it in the chats. Then I have a link tree there. I appreciate you asking about donation stuff. I appreciate that. Then individual donations through PayPal and Patreon are what help me the most right now. There's other ones help also, but that's what helps me the most. I take out ads from the audio version for Patreon, and when I'm able to do it, I do extra content, or I put content of shows that I'm a guest on for patrons. And another way to help out is just share the show with friends. And if you're listening to an audio-only version of the show, let the ads play through, because we don't get anything from the ads if they don't play through. And the ads have never affected my content, ever. I don't care. If we lose the ads, I don't care. But if you let them play through, if we do have them, they don't all have them. It does help. So thank you guys again. The link tree is in the chats here on YouTube, I believe. And we'll see you guys in about 45 minutes. Have a fantastic rest of your 45 minutes. Yes, they do, JC. They help a lot, and they make me feel good, too. Thank you. See y'all in a little bit.